Hello and welcome to our Biz Small Talk. We're very, very excited today to talk with Brian Ward from Experian and Gerri Detweiler, who's the head of market education for NAV. Today we're talking about how to grow your small business and position it for success. I want to let everyone know on Blab, if you have any questions for our small business experts, you can always post them in the sidebar. Or if you want to come on Blab and ask in person, you can also do that by clicking on the call in button on the little square that's available. So we're just excited for everyone to be here on Blab and to talk about small business success. So Brian and Gerri, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
So I want to kick us off. Gerri, I met you over the years through different tweet chats and events, and you have always been just awesome to talk with about credit and business. And I met you finally in person at FinCon, which is like this small business blogging event, media event, and it's just growing. And there are so many bloggers and writers who are writing about side hustles and starting a small business. And there seems to be like this trend of people who are just trying to do whatever they can to make small business make extra money, like being an Uber driver or renting out a room for Airbnb, right? I wanted to ask, what are some side jobs that you've seen that can turn into a small business?
Really, any kind of side business can turn into a small business depending on where you go with it. Now, if you're an Uber driver, that's a little bit harder because you're actually just picking up rides and you're working for them. But let's say you really want to get into, catering. So you start doing it small. You test the waters, and it's actually a great way to get a feel for whether it's something you might like to do long term. If you don't test the waters, you think, oh, it'd be so cool to run a restaurant, and then you work for a restaurant, it could be a really rude awakening. So it's actually a great way to test the waters and see what you might be interested in and learn something about the industry.
Brian, are there any friends that you know or anybody that you've seen who has taken like a side job and turned it into like a small business?
I don't know that I have any friends directly, but you're starting to see this pop up everywhere. Sites like TaskRabbit, where you can go and do tasks for other people in your off hours. So there's plenty of places where this is beginning to, with the collaboration economy, begin to form. And I think it's a great way, as Gerri said, to test the waters. If you are thinking about starting a small business, sometimes it's better to dip your toe in than to go full force. And this is a great way to see if you have an aptitude for it and if you can set it up properly for success.
What would you guys say would be a step? Like, let's say that you started a business. Like I started like as a personal hobby. I did like dog photography, just like on the side, just because I like photography, and I was like, dogs can't complain, so I'll be a dog photographer. And I kind of did that just as a side because I enjoyed it. But at what point would you suggest that someone is kind of ready to move from it's a side hobby to actually, I'm going to do this full time? What would you suggest, advise somebody who is kind of like at that tipping point where they're like, oh, I have a full-time job, so I have benefits, but then I also want to grow, and I think that this could be potentially a small business for me that I could do in the future. What advice would you give that person?
I'd say bank money. So it's literally, let's say you have a dog walking business, right? Or a dog sitting and dog walking. And there's some fascinating stories of people who have left Wall Street jobs and now do this, full time and make a good living. So you bank that income, and you make sure that you have enough income that you can afford to quit your job if your family's relying on that income. And so when you take that leap, it's not as stressful. Cash flow is one of the top issues for small business owners. And things are not going to always be busy. So let's say you're a dog sitter, right? It's going to be busy around the holidays. But then here in Florida, everyone picks up and goes back up north. So all summer, it's probably not going to be busy. So you have to be able to ride that out, especially if your family's relying on that income.
Yeah, Brian.
Yeah, so I think it's, to build on Gerri's point, it's crossing that chasm of, can it become your primary income? If it's a side hustle or something that you're doing on your off days, you want to know that you can make it your primary income, especially if you have a family, which a lot of us do at a certain point. So that's sort of that chasm. And then it becomes, hey, can I set up the infrastructure for this to actually run efficiently Can I set up it in a manner where I'm getting cash flow, where I can create expenses and also profit? And then it becomes, okay, now let's put some rigor around it with regards to building a website, maybe creating social channels, really establishing your business, maybe with an incorporation or an LLC, in which case then you're beginning to think more about separating your personal life from your business life and beginning to do a full-fledged small business. And that's sort of that tipping point, I would say.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. I want to welcome everyone who is watching us here on Blab. Thank you, JJ. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Simon, for hopping in here. If you guys have any questions for Brian Ward or Gerri Detweiler around growing your small business, we invite you to join us here on Blab. You can either take a seat with us or post your question in the sidebar. We would love to chat with you. So we're just getting started here, guys. We just talked about some different small business ideas people can start, what that tipping point might be before you move from your full-time career to turning your hobby into an actual small business. Brian, what should people know before they begin? Because becoming your own boss might be a dream and something that you might be able to achieve through a small business, but what should people know before they actually become their own boss?
I think the key piece of recommendation or advice that I would give is that there's a lot of groundwork that needs to occur before you probably start your business. So oftentimes it's good to really have a very strong understanding of the industry that you're going into and have a pretty clear vision and business plan of how you're going to make money and what your goals are and what that looks like. And then once you've begun to really understand that this is something viable, you'll want to do the things that are necessary to begin establishing your business. I mentioned a few of those earlier, but yeah, you're going to want to get a domain name for your website. You're going to want to start your social channels and make sure that they're available, that somebody doesn't already have those. You're going to want to begin to hopefully incorporate or create an LLC and then begin acting like a business, separating your expenses, your personal expenses from your business expenses, and then set up the infrastructure that you're going to need to manage your finances or your clients and your employees. And then the last thing that I thought was really, really interesting with regards to one of the last chats we were on is getting a mentor. So there's a lot of great places that you can do that, Score, Micro Mentor, and then obviously what's very popular nowadays is meetups.
That's cool. Gerri, what advice, and Simon, welcome to our Blab. How are you doing?
Everyone. Thank you for accepting me coming in. I love this conversation. Thank you, Brian. Thank you. What's the name? Experian?
Yes, Experian.
Experian.
So welcome to our chat. We're talking about growing a small business. So thanks very much for joining us. Simon, hold on one second. Gerri, I wanted to ask you the same question. What should entrepreneurs know and before they begin start their small business?
Well, I thought Brian's advice was spot on, and a couple of things I would just add. One is that a lot of times people wait to incorporate or form a business structure until they're making a lot of money, and that could be right. And let's say you do have dogs that you're dog sitting, and that dog bites somebody else, and suddenly you have opened your personal self to personal liability. So you actually want to look at a business structure early on. The same thing with opening a business bank account. And a good reason to do that, there's two. One is you can start to build business credit that way. These are all steps that are part of building your business credit history. And the other is that you could take advantage of tax benefits that you may not get if you're mingling your personal and business credit. So everything goes on your personal credit card and it's business expenses too. It's going to be pretty hard to sort that out at tax time and be able to deduct the interest or the annual fee. But if it's completely separate, you probably will be able to.
Simon, I'm looking at your profile. Notice you're a coach, you're a strategist. What advice do you give to somebody who is looking to grow their business and make an impact? What's some things that they should know that you'd give them some advice on?
Well, thank you very much for the question, Experian. And I personally, it depends for what kind of business. So the kind of businesses that I mentor mainly are people that want to become coaches, speakers, trainers. And they don't know how to start. And it's like, oh my God, I want to make an impact. I want to change the world. And where am I going to start? I don't have a clue. So these are the kind of businesses that I mentor. And when they ask me, where do I start? I would always suggest look at what is your biggest passion? And I think that sometimes is overlooked and sometimes is oversaid. But if you're doing something just for the sake of money, then when you might survive the first 5 or 6 or 10 bumps, but then you're gonna get tired. It's like everyone knows that who's been in business, it's not easy. I mean, it's extremely fulfilling, but if you're starting from scratch with a low budget, like personally I did, if I didn't have yes, I love this, I do this because I love it, then I would be just, you know what, snooze, 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 not even getting out of bed. So yeah, I would recommend do something that you're passionate about, find what is your purpose, what is your goal, and find that thing that you would do even if you were not going to be paid for it. Yeah, and then find a way to get paid for it.
Which
makes it even more.
Yeah, I think that's hard. Brian, how important is it for you to really be passionate about the work you're going to be doing?
I mean, that's an ideal situation that you get to do the work that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
But we all sort of find out that sometimes our passions turn into work and then they're no longer our passions.
Right.
Because when you're starting a small business, it requires a lot of work and a lot of hard work. And it's not always easy. But that being said, I always think that you should rally around a cause. And a cause can also be something that you're passionate about. So as long as you have a cause that is something that you believe in, you will always have some passion in it. And I think from that point of view, it's a great way to start a business and still remain dedicated and passionate about it.
Oh, I have to add a quick story to what you just said, Brian, because when we moved to Florida, my husband started a fishing charter business. He loves fishing, and that was his passion, right? He quickly discovered that there's a big difference between going out fishing for yourself
Right.
and taking someone else out, and that is no longer his business. And he really went about it the right way to start it, but he discovered it wasn't fun. So that's why, low risk testing the waters can be really helpful.
Yeah, back to that dipping your toe in that we talked about earlier, right?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because this is the other challenge of running a business that you're passionate about, is that because you're working on it, then the passion element can just like fade away. So I definitely agree with that. But I don't know, I personally would say, if you're starting a business, it's easier to get a job than starting a business. So if you're doing something that you don't love, just get a job. It's easier. at least you get paid. And then you spend your rest of the time doing something that you don't like. But I don't know. I just feel that there are a lot of people that are going to businesses and then they're just frustrated, and it's like, it's a great opportunity. I can make a lot of money from it, and great. But I used to work. My background before coaching was in managing Michelin star restaurants. So I started managing Michelin star restaurants since I was 19, and I was working with people like we had people like Beyonce, Woody Allen. We had like all these big celebrity and millionaires and billionaires. They were coming at our restaurant, and sometimes you just find miserable people. And I'm like, so what's the point? What if you could get paid a lot by doing something that you really, really love every single day? But then, as you were saying, Brian, and just Gerri,
Detweiler, yeah.
Okay, I just don't want to mess up names because like my Italian pronunciation can get quite a bit over the top. But anyway, so saying, as you were saying, Brian and Gerri, face it in a strategic way where then you can still maintain your passion. These are my thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Simon, I want to thank you so much for joining our Blab today. We have someone else who wants to join in, Monty. So thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, thank you very much for having me, and I'll keep following. It's an incredible
conversation. Thank you, Simon. And Monty, welcome to come on in. And okay, so guys, let's talk a little bit about. We just talked about the importance of passion and doing something that you love, but then sometimes the passion might turn into something you don't like doing. So you have to be very, very careful when starting a small business. But let's talk about and shift the conversation over to business credit scores. How can a small business owner establish a business credit score?
Yeah, I can start that one. So we always recommend starting by getting an employer identification number, so tax ID. That starts you on the path to building business credit. And then we talked earlier about setting up your business in a legal name. Ideally, you do that. You can still have business credit through a sole proprietorship, but that makes it a lot cleaner for the bureaus. And then begin to open up accounts in your legal business name. So that's like your phone, make sure that it's listed, your utilities, bank accounts, credit cards, office space. If it's in your business name, you will begin to establish credit. And Gerri, I think, mentioned this earlier, but the second that you start building business credit, that's factored into your score. So the number of years in business is an important factor in determining your business credit score. So the earlier you can start, the better.
Gerri, and Ebong Eka is here. Thank you so much for joining us, Ebong. How are you doing? Oh, your sound's not working, Ebong. Let's see. I see you fine, but your sound is not working at this point. Let's see here. While we wait for Ebong's sound to work, Gerri, do you want to share a little bit about taking that next step from starting your small business to then establishing a business credit score, to kind of expand on what Brian just said?
Yeah, so what Brian described are absolutely essential steps if you want to start a small business. I will mention at NAV, where I work now, we do have a free tool called Business Launcher that walks you through those steps. So you can figure out what they are and get started. But I think the confusing thing for a lot of entrepreneurs is figuring out who reports to the business credit agencies, because with a credit card, or with your personal credit, you open up a credit card, you get a mortgage, it's going to be reported to all three, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, right? It's almost all the time. With the business credit agencies, it's a little more confusing. So I don't know if everyone who's watching right now knows that you have an Experian small business credit report. There is an agency called D&B, Dun & Bradstreet, that has business credit reports, and they work a little bit differently. But they're very important, and the scores that are produced by these business credit bureaus can help you save money, get better terms, get financing, etc. So you really want to start early before you need financing. It can even help you with terms. So let's say you're dealing with a company and you want to pay in 30 days, or you want to pay in 60 days. With strong business credit, you can actually get better terms, but again, starting early so that you have time to build it. It's not an overnight thing.
I think, a lot of people are starting off with their small business by just using their own personal credit. Brian, at what point should you be shifting over to start from going from personal to business?
Well, we recommend as early as possible, but the fact is most small businesses start with your own personal credit, but we recommend separating the two as early as you can because of risk. So as soon as you establish your business credit, you begin to develop a business credit score. The business credit score is not interrelated with your personal score. So therefore, if the personal score goes up, the business score won't necessarily go up. But if the personal score goes down, the business score won't go down, and vice versa. So we like you to separate them. But I think the big piece there is you want to build your business credit score so that in times where you are going to set up business relationships or looking for a loan, and Gerri talked a little bit about some of those things, you don't have to use a personal guarantee. So the more that you can spend time to build your business credit, you will have much greater negotiation power when you're ready to take that step in funding or in a business relationship. It could be as simple as setting the terms for a lease for an office space. So those are all times where you're going to really want a strong business credit score. And so one of the quick ways of doing that is making sure that you're separating your personal from your business.
I've just we got a question here for Gerri and Brian. How do you separate the two when you're trying to, you're establishing your business credit? Then how do you decide, how are you separating those expenses?
Well, you separate your business and personal credit by building strong business credit so that when you apply, if a lender may sometimes they will just go straight to your personal credit. Like if you start a business and you get a small business credit card, they're going to check your personal credit scores. That's just a given. But if you've been in business for 5 years, you have strong revenues, and a sufficient number of employees, then you can actually negotiate for a corporate card that could do away with the personal guarantee and be bolstered by the strength of your business credit. So you separate it by building strong business credit, so that option is there for lenders to make decisions.
Awesome. And I say Ebong Eka is here. Ebong, is your sound working?
How does that sound?
Oh, this sounds great. Awesome. We made it.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to have Ebong here. Ebong, I got your book right here. Start Me Up. Yeah, thank you. Awesome to have you. We're just getting started with our conversation around, how to grow your small business. And right now we're talking about the separation. Someone has taken the steps to begin business credit. So Ebong, I just wanted to get your thoughts on how do you begin to separate out and establish yourself in business credit?
I heard Brian's answer earlier on. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, I heard Brian's answer earlier on. I completely agree with that. In addition to that, one thing to do is to get a DUNS number. But you go to Dun and Bradstreet. I don't know if you mentioned that or not, but that's just something else I would also do in addition to that. And then try to, in addition to, most people will tell you this, to separate your financial dealings from your personal, because there are a lot of people that I meet, even clients that I have, who commingle. The term is commingling your funds, right. And they'll take money out of their private bank account to make payments and to pay off things. But the reality is, you want to keep them as separate as possible, and preferably, with a business bank account, and then through your bank would be one good way to try and establish credit, because they're able to see everything else. They're seeing all the action and activity that's happening in your bank. Now, long term, I'm not necessarily saying that you stay with the same bank that you had from a credit perspective, but as a start, that's one way. That's one of the easier ways to do it, because it's easier to get a dialogue with a commercial bank manager there.
Now, Ebong, there's a lot of people who are just joining this Blab. We're talking about business credit and getting into the nitty gritty here. Can we take a step back really quickly and talk about establishing? So let's just say that you have a small business, maybe you're a photographer, you're a DJ, and you're just starting out your business. What is the first step you take to begin getting that business credit? Like, how does that work?
Okay, I'll take that. Basically, one thing is I would say is you want to know why you need the money. So when I wrote the book, a lot of people, I noticed that they thought they needed a business plan because they thought they needed to go to a bank to get the money. But when I'd ask them, what do you need the money for? They weren't able to be able to be very specific in what they needed the money for. They just thought that was just a term that we use. That's what you're taught. Get a business plan and go get some money. Like, that's what you're told to do. So that was the behavior that was part of the narrative. And so the reality is, you need to be very specific. I need to buy DJ equipment. This is how much a DJ equipment costs. I need to pay for an assistant. This is why I need the assistant. People will be more likely, like when you're talking to a manager, like when I wrote that book, I interviewed at least 5 or 6 different commercial bank managers talking about from a loan perspective. Because I blatantly said that they're not giving you money anyways as a startup, so don't even bother. But that said, I will say that it's imperative that you'll have a better discussion if the more prepared you are. And the more prepared you are will increase your likelihood of them actually maybe listening to you, maybe even lending you money. But if you know exactly why you need your funds for, that'll make it easier for you to have that conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, Ebong. So let's talk a little bit about business loans and something that Ebong just brought up. Gerri, what steps should a small business owner take before applying for a business loan?
Well, keep in mind that there are 44 different types of financing available to small businesses. So a lot of us think of a traditional small business loan. We're going to go to the bank and apply for a loan. But there are myriad options for financing available today. And they can range from a cash advance against the sales that you're bringing in. Square and PayPal now are analyzing your activity in your account with them. And if they strong, they will actually reach out and offer you money to tide you through tight times of cash flow. So there's so many different options. So it's really important for the business owner to understand what they need, just what you were talking about. You have to know what are you What do you need the money for? How much do you need? How are you going to use it? And also very important to make sure that you can really afford to repay it. Because if those payments are sucking up your cash flow going forward, it can become like literally like a business payday loan where you're taking out more money just to pay back the current loan and you don't have the profits to sustain it. So, so I think the biggest mistake we all make, whether we're consumers or entrepreneurs, is we sort of wait to worry about credit till we really need it. And that's not the time you think about credit. You think about credit going forward as a planning tool, the financial management tool. And you think about what you might need next year, going down the road, and then you prepare the groundwork so you can get the best available financing at that time.
Brian?
Yeah, so I think all great points. Why do I need the loan? What am I going to use the money for? And then how am I going to pay it back, right? I mean, that's sort of at the core of like your first step. And then it's sort of preparation, which is what Gerri talked about, making sure that you have your balance sheets, your bank statements, because you might need to utilize those depending on what lender you're using, checking both your consumer and your business credit report, and then 44 different options. So be ready to shop. I think you should be ready to think about where you might want to go. There's so many different places you can go, to a traditional bank, online marketplace lenders. There's so many different places that you can access capital. And then once you're ready to begin moving forward, make sure you understand those terms in detail. I think that's sort of the next key point, because I've heard of a lot of stories of small businesses that get into some type of financing that they didn't realize what they were getting into, and then they have a really tough time paying it back through the cash flow that they currently have.
Yeah. Can I add one more thing to that? Just something I thought of. In a nutshell, I also try to implore small businesses to. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Oh yeah, hear you fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. I want small businesses to also be concerned with, like, when I borrow money, I want it to be because there's an income producing activity that's associated with it. And so too often, like when I started out writing business plans like over a decade ago, people would like have a line item for like rent and office space. And then when you found out it was only one or two people, they could work remotely, or they'd try and get money to buy all these desks, but they don't have anybody to sit at them. Like it's ridiculous stuff. So you want to make sure that if you're going to acquire credit for anything, it's supposed to be associated with income producing properties or activities. So whether it's getting a new for payroll, to take care of payroll, if it's to buy product or for inventory, then yes, that makes perfect sense. But you also want to make sure, like Gerri and Brian were saying, the last thing you want to do is borrow money to pay for things that don't necessarily produce income, and then you end up like in a payday loan situation because you can't even pay the interest on the note, and that's something that people need to be aware of.
I say picture yourself on Shark Tank, right?
That's right.
The sharks, why you need the money, forget it.
Right.
So let's talk about the lenders that are out there. Obviously, there's some lenders out there that wouldn't be good for a small business. So let's talk about what are some good lenders, and maybe Ebong, we'll start with you. So good lenders at a small business when they're ready to take that step, they've kind of looked at, they've already read your book, they've kind of built out a business plan, and they're ready to take a step to go, okay, I need financing to build my business. Where should they begin looking? What options are available to them?
We're in a great situation now, especially with leveraging technology and the internet. You can work a lot more remotely. 15 years ago, you couldn't find people to lend you money online. That was crazy. And you'd have to literally do a road show, get in a car and drive all over the place just to get somebody to even take your meeting. And so online is a great resource. PayPal, like Gerri said, I even get these emails from PayPal occasionally saying, hey, you want to get some credit? I was like, they're giving you credit. In some cases, if you don't need it, take it. And just have it open, even if it's sitting there, because when you need it, that's when they're not going to give it to you. And people give you money when you don't need it. So your bank is another great place to look as well. It all depends on. So when you're looking for, you're not just looking for the different the variations of people who can provide you with credit. You also want to take a look at the cost of acquiring it, the interest rates, and then comparing that with where can I go elsewhere, what are the terms, and literally try and compare apples to apples, so you're not comparing apples to oranges, and a lot of times that's some of the mistakes that we make.
That's really, really good. Brian, what advice would you give to the small business owner that's looking to get a loan?
Yeah, I concur. It's one of the best times that I can remember that small businesses have such great access to capital and so many different options. Certainly online is a great place to start. There's a lot of online marketplace lenders out there that you can apply quickly, you can get approved quickly, and you can get funding quickly. And generally the loans are shorter term, and so the payback time isn't something like 2 or 3 years, but you're going to maybe have a little bit more higher interest rate or whatever, or terms in general. Whereas a traditional bank, you may already have a bank account with that bank, and so you might have lower interest rates, and some of it may be tax deductible. And so you have the benefit of managing both your account and your loan in the same place. So there's some efficiencies there for you. But ultimately, there's so many different places you can look. Start online, go to the bank where you have your business bank account, and start. And I think just so many different options for small businesses these days.
Would you guys? I'm curious. What are some things or some warning signs that they should not be taking a loan? What should they be? What's the small business owners be looking at on the contracts or when dealing with lenders that maybe this might not be the right type of loan for me?
Well, we mentioned interest rates, and that's really important, especially with some of the fast cash products that are out there, because the effective rate is not well disclosed. Remember, with credit business lending, you don't have the same consumer protections that you'd have with consumer lending. So the feeling is generally in a regulatory environment, the businesses should be savvy enough to take care of themselves. But we know a lot of people start businesses and they may or may not be financially ready. So the interest rate isn't often apparent. It can be literally 400% or higher. And again, if you can't pay that back, you're basically in a small business payday loan. We do have some free calculators at nap.com. You can calculate an APR if they don't give it to you, or ask the lender or broker, what's the APR for this? Because you'll probably, once you register your business, you get a lot of offers. They'll come in a lot of different ways, in the mail, on the phone, online. And you want to be careful to understand who you're working with, because some are more, frankly, reputable than others. There isn't a lot of regulation.
I just see a good question here from GTEX UK, who says, what if your credit score is bad and a business needs a loan and quick injection of cash? What would you suggest? Any advice for the small business owner that maybe has poor business credit, they're trying to get some money fast? Any advice for them, guys?
Hit up your friends and family.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, a fast loan. Now, if you're not in a rush and you really do have a good prospect for a business, then you could look into a couple of options. One is micro-lending, and one is crowdfunding. So if you could put together, if you have a compelling business, or even just something that really is benefiting the community, I'm thinking of something like Kiva Zip, where those programs are going to be based on the contribution you're making to your community. It's going to be a small loan. Then that might be a good way to go. The other thing is the merchant cash advances that we mentioned earlier. Those are based on the money coming into your business. They're not based on your personal credit score. So while they're more expensive, the general rule of thumb is the faster you get it, the more you're going to pay for it. So those might be an option as long as your receivables, the money that you're either banking each month or that's coming in, is strong enough to support the repayment.
Yeah, and I love the comments in the sidebar. Crowdfunding, exactly what you said, Gerri. GoFundMe, or even if you needed to, asking family and friends if you're really in a bind. Of course, that's probably the last resort you want to do, but definitely looking for outside sources. Ebong, is there any other sources you would say for a small business that's struggling, that needs some cash quickly?
I want to make sure that they identify why they need the money. And in addition to that, this is kind of, it may sound a little contrarian, but you may have to ramp up your sales. You may have to find a way to ramp up your sales by calling more people, or banging the phones if you have to, because like the whole goal of a business is to be self-sufficient eventually. And when it comes to bringing in debt on the business, I see too many businesses who have crippling amounts of debt, but yet they're just treading water. And if without the debt, they're pretty much, the businesses will be insolvent. So the question has become is, well, how do I need to change my business prices? Okay, that doesn't necessarily answer the question, I need money today. But yes, in the same token, you should almost never get to that place. Like, and I know it happens, and I'm not trying to sound like a crazy person, but it does happen to a lot of people. But in the same token, you need to be cognizant as you're slowly marching towards that line of not having enough money to pay your bills for whatever. And that happens, maybe your inventory gets destroyed or whatever else. Maybe that means you have to have the right insurance. But I would say go locally. Maybe, go to your local credit union. They're lending a lot more in the community. Go to your local credit union. You can also take a look at some SBA opportunities as well. That takes a little bit longer, but maybe your local credit union may be able to help you out. And you don't necessarily need to be. You could be a member, but there are other innovative ways for you to become a member of a local credit union that doesn't require you to be specifically part of that credit union. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and the flip side of that, as well as growing your sales and marketing, is looking for efficiencies. Your back office. Oftentimes you see a lot of money bleeding out the back end because you're not properly watching your administrative tasks. So I think that's the other part of it. If you're a supply chain organization, your inventory and your orders and all of these things, and there's a lot of great inexpensive technology out there that oftentimes has a free trial or even has a freemium offer that allows small businesses at a very low cost to be much bigger. And so in addition to growing, you might want to look at costs, right? That's the second part of that equation.
Yeah, I'm curious, what are, Brian, what are some of these tools that are available that small businesses can look into to help optimize and be more efficient?
Yeah, so like if you're looking for CRM, and Sitely is a great small business application. Accounting Seed for your back end. Intuit obviously has got great QuickBooks. But there's many, many others, too many to name, but they're specifically designed for small business. And you can do a quick search, best applications for small business on Google. And you'll find a listing by many great, great authors.
So the good question from DChecks UK about, the small business that's suffering with poor credit. Let's take another step back and look at, how does that business begin establishing great credit and keep great credit?
Yeah, so I can start that process. So the first step is to begin acting like a business. So we talked about separating your personal from your business. The second is to begin paying on time, right? So it's good to pay on time, reducing your utilization or paying down your costs. And then we like to say monitor. So really take the time to monitor your business credit, because if you're putting in the time to build it, you should want to know where it's at on any given day, right? So that's sort of our quick advice.
That's cool.
Another tip I'd add there, and that is with some business credit reports, in particular with your DMB Paydex score, which may be required for government contracts, for example, for paying early. So with your personal credit, you pay early. Doesn't really matter, other than I suppose it could reduce your balances that are reported, and that might help. But with DMB, paying early can actually help you earn a higher Paydex score. And it's the payment data on business credit reports can be much more granular than it is with personal credit. So with our personal credit, as long as we don't pay 30 days late, it doesn't get reported as a late payment. But with your business credit report, if you're a few days late, it can show days beyond term. And that means you're paying later. And if you have a net 20, the payment's due 20 days after the invoice, you could easily end up with what would be considered a late payment. So familiarizing yourself with the business credit reports and understanding how they're different so that you don't automatically assume, I know how to maintain good personal credit, so it's no problem. I'm sure on business credit. They work a little bit differently, so you need to be familiar with them so that you can understand them and, as Brian mentioned, monitor them.
I'm looking at some of the comments in the sidebar here. Valor Kingdom says, don't use credit just because you have credit. Ebong goes, it's funny, your comment earlier about, sometimes you're going to be offered a lot of credit, and you were saying how you're going to get offered credit when you don't need it, but that's a great time to take it, because sometimes when you need credit, you're not going to get it.
Yeah. I was just basically saying have access to it, because you'll see it happen every single time when you need the credit and you go in. There'll be a sense of desperation. It's like it's like if you're at the school dance and you're trying to ask that girl out, and she's the only one that's left, and she knows that you want to ask her out, right? There's a sense of power that comes into that. And so the bank manager, doesn't matter who it is, even if they want to give you the money, they're going to look at you like you're crazy. It's like, yeah, something must be off. But if you have abundance of it, like, again, you don't have to use it, you just have access to it. And so that could be as simple as actually applying for it and getting approved and then having that card. Like sometimes I have credit where I'll have a card. I'll literally, like most people, I'll put it like in a block of ice and put it in the freezer. I don't need it, but I have it. And so it affects my score, favorably in a good way. So that's one thing to consider.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love your analogy to getting the date. I love that. Brian, you talked about the importance of monitoring credit. Can you talk a little bit about the importance for small businesses to be keeping an eye on their credit?
Yeah, so the first part is back to what everyone's been talking about. You only need credit when probably at a bad time. So it's important to build it so that in that time of need, whether it's to survive, sustain, or thrive, that you have that ability to leverage it to its best ability. And so you'll want to monitor it to make sure that it's moving in the right direction for you. We actually have a free tool on businesscreditfacts.com that allows you to enter in a little bit of information, see what an estimated score is, and then determine what you need to do in order to improve it, which I highly recommend, totally free, and you can use any time. It also ensures you have a positive reputation. So anyone can view your business credit report, unlike your consumer report. So you could have consumers viewing it, you could have other business partners viewing it at any given time. So it's important to know what your business credit score is. And the last piece, and the piece that I am most worried about, is fraud. So we're seeing more and more that fraudsters are moving out of the consumer world and into the business world because there's a lot more credit and funds available to get at. So that is one of those things that you are going to want to monitor so that you can ensure that nobody's taking advantage of your business.
Gerri?
I can't emphasize that enough. The founder of NAV actually had a small business, a sign company, and someone else applied for credit using his business's credit report.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just, because it's not something most of us are cognizant of, we aren't paying attention to it, and anybody can get this report. So that means if they get the report, there's information there that they can use to try to apply for credit in your name. So if you're not watching it, you could be in trouble. So it is so absolutely crucial to monitor your business credit, just like you hopefully monitor your personal credit.
Oh, that is so scary. Welcome, Jody, to see you just joined us, and welcome all the people who have joined us here on Blab. We're talking about how to grow your small business. I'm very excited that you're here. If you guys have any questions about growing your business, questions about business credit, Ebong is here, Brian is here, Gerri is here. We're here to, they're here to answer your questions. So feel free to type in your questions in the sidebar, and we would love to take them. I would love, Ebong, I was just cracking up at your comment about closing the deal at the dance floor. It's so funny. So let's talk about fraud, because it is a big concern. And if you're not monitoring your credit, business credit, that could be something that creeps up on you. What are some of the common forms of fraud that's happening for small businesses that you guys are seeing?
Well, I heard a great story from an entrepreneur, terrible story from an entrepreneur who actually had another business open up a business, the same name, the same building.
Oh.
Different floor. And use that to open up lines of credit and buy a lot of stuff. And it took a while before they were caught. So you really have to be careful. The other thing I hear from stories from entrepreneurs is actually, unfortunately, business partners. So business partners who will take the information they have and use it for their own personal gain without the partner knowing what's going on until it's too late and that money is out there and the other business partner is left holding the bag, and that's not uncommon either. So while it's sort of like the divorce and credit scenario where one spouse runs up the bills and then leaves and doesn't pay them, it can literally drive you into business and personal bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Brian, I want to ask, how often should a small business be looking at their credit?
I think it depends on what you're trying to achieve, but we recommend once a month at the very least. And depending on if you're really headed towards trying to get financing, you might want to do it more often. But once a month is probably about a fair amount of frequency.
Let's talk about one of the questions we're asking in our small biz credit chat right now is about business records, and why is it wise to keep good business records? Why are business records important? And maybe Gerri, you can start with an answer to that one.
Well, it's just like your tax records and your personal records. If you don't have it, you can claim it, right? And you want to minimize the tax liabilities. Certainly that's one reason, but there can be a lot of reasons for insurance and legal purposes. Also, we're in a very increased regulatory environment when it comes to things like data security. So if you have information about your customers, you have to make sure that information is very secure, because if it's not and it gets out, gets leaked, then guess what? Your business could be on the line, and it could be very, very expensive and literally shut down the business.
Yeah. I was just thinking about a documentary I recently saw that was from a couple of years ago about Cantor Fitzgerald. You know what happened, that bond company that was in the World Trade Center that collapsed, and they were forced to start, like the rest of the bankers kind of the market forced them to open up 3 days after 9/11. And if they did not have their records off-site, stored somewhere else in a way that it was accessible, they would have been screwed. And so I was just literally part of that documentary was talking about how quickly they went back up and running when the market opened it again, like 2 days later. And so there are a lot of small businesses who don't think the same way. They keep records in certain places. It's in paper. It's all in the office and where they operate. And imagine if there's a flood. Imagine if there's a fire. Imagine if there's pilfering. Somebody comes in and steals a file. Then you could be out, like Gerri said, you could literally not only be out of business because you lost files, but there's a security risk, or you end up going out of business because you don't have, the client sues you, because you compromise their information. So it's really, and as a C.P.A. during tax time, it's an absolute nightmare. The clients who come with boxes of paper because they're not organized. And so there's a better. I just think that it's imperative, just as you take the time to provide services to your customers and clients, it's imperative that we do the same thing with our record keeping. And then it makes everything else down the line a lot easier.
Yeah, just to build on that, gosh, my wife's a sole prop. 1 year, her first or second year in, we had personal and business, and we were going to tax season, and it was an absolute nightmare. So I felt that pain personally, and never will do it again. The other thing that you might want to be cognizant of when keeping good business records is your exit strategy. So what are you looking to do on the back end of this? If you are planning for that, you're going to want clean records for valuation. Should you want to be bought? If you want to develop more business partners or even your other partnerships, they're going to want to see a lot of this information. So it's good to keep that information really clean and available so that you're not in a bind when you really need it.
Awesome. Guys, I can't believe this hour has been flying by. I wanted to get your final thoughts. This is amazing. This hour's flying by. Final thoughts on how a small business can grow, and just final tips. And Gerri, maybe we'll start with you.
So I think building the runway is the most important thing, that you have, the financial capability to ride up and down, the cash flow up and down, that you build strong business credit there when you need it. We'd love to help you do that at NAV, and really prepare yourself for, there's gonna be some turbulence. It's just the nature of the business, but it can also be, pretty exciting ride if you do right from the beginning.
Brian?
Yeah, so I think there was a similar question last time I participated, and my first point was, we'll decide if you really want to grow. So I think that's sort of the first step. And if you are interested in growing, prepare for it. Much like the first question of what do you do when you are about to start a business, you got to prepare for that growth, right? Because it comes with a lot of pains, right? We talk about growing pains. That's a very true thing. So oftentimes that means creating efficiencies. So taking a look at your back office and using technology for efficiencies. And then to what was spoken about before, which is implementing growth tactics. So that could be your reputation, your marketing, your sales, creating customer loyalty. So those are all important factors. At Experian, we would obviously say, making business credit a priority. So building it and monitoring it. And then lastly, really understanding that growth is a journey. It's not an overnight success. And, oftentimes on TV, it looks like this stuff happens overnight and it's very clean and pretty, but oftentimes growth is very ugly and long, and being prepared for that journey. And knowing that you can make it, but just that it's going to take some time.
I love that, Brian. Thank you. And Ebong, I wanted to leave the final words with you. I mean, you have a whole book dedicated to helping you grow a business, chock full of wonderful wisdom. And just want to get your final thoughts for the person who is, they're ready to move their business, their hobby into a business. They want to be good about establishing good business credit, and then just overall, just final tips for them as they are just growing their business.
The main thing for me, I'm a huge fan of sales. I'm a huge fan of doubling down on your sales. And the one way to do that efficiently is to identify specifically what your customer wants. So if you are a DJ, you're not just a DJ. Your customer wants something. That's why they pay you money. If you're a coach, you're not just a coach. You provide, what are your results? What are the results you're trying to provide for whoever you're working with? And so whoever people watching the replay, I want them to identify and to think about specifically, how can I make my customer and client's life better? When I can do that, then I can increase the sales, I can increase the price, I can focus more on bringing money into the business. Because I know some people may disagree, but I believe that sales can cure all. It allows you, gives you the runway to not to worry. You can focus on other things. You can get more resources in your business if you can provide a lot more services to your clients and customers by solving their problems. And the bigger thing is, this is what America is about. I mean, I'm an immigrant of this country. I love this country, and coming here and being able to be an entrepreneur is like literally a phenomenal thing. Like I literally, like the day that I become a citizen, I'm gonna bawl my eyes out. And so I just literally, like, with that being said, like I've always believed that you can come here and pretty much achieve anything you want. It's not easy, like Brian said, right? It's not a line. It's going to be all sorts of this, right? Sometimes you go backwards.
That's right.
Right? You go backwards and forwards, upside down. You may lose your shirt a bunch of times, but you always have the ability to make a new one and buy a new shirt. So I just want people who are watching, a lot of them are struggling. Don't look in the mirror at yourself and see, am I doing everything I could be doing to make it my life and my dreams become a reality? That's kind of how I
love it. And for those that don't know, Ebong is on Periscope every day, giving wonderful just advice and motivation. I absolutely love your scopes. Ebong, where can people learn more about you and your daily scopes and the things you're doing?
My name's the same. It's EBONGEKA, same handle on Twitter and as well as Periscope. And I just do daily motivational scopes, just talk about life and try to use analogies to get people out of particular ruts and maybe encourage and empower them. And then also same thing. My name's my website, EBONGEKA.com. But also economics. My last name is Eka, and economics is a play on the word economics, where we focus on your mission, your mindset, and your money. So mission is your purpose. Mindset is self-explanatory. And then the money could be career, but it could also be entrepreneurial. It's just trying to give you the tips to live the best life you possibly can.
Awesome. Thank you, Ebong. And if you could put your links in the sidebar so people can follow you and your website and subscribe. Gerri, can you let everyone know about your work and where they can find you?
So I'm with nav.com, and we provide small business owners with a free snapshot of their business and personal credit, which they can monitor there, and then they can also build stronger credit, find better financial, and get free tools to help them grow their business. And I'm also the author of a new book, Finance Your Own Business, which comes out in January. I forgot to put my
awesome, Gerri.
But I think we're going to give away a couple copies from this week. So someone who's been participating is going to get a couple copies of it. But it's Finance Your Own Business.
That's awesome. And you're always podcasting and on the radio. So where can people make sure to put your links also in the sidebar, Gerri, so people can follow you there. Awesome. And finally, Brian, where can people learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter. Certainly look for me on LinkedIn as well. But we have great products and services here at Experian. SmartBusinessReports.com is where you can get your business credit report. You can monitor your business credit. You can get valuation reports there as well to get the value of your business. We also have a website called businesscreditfacts.com that tells you a lot about business credit and really gives you the education you need to properly build it. And that's where that business credit score planner is. So I highly recommend that. That's totally free and a way that you can really plan your future to build your small business.
That's wonderful. Well, guys, I want to thank you all for being here for a small business chat. It's been wonderful talking with you and just hanging out. And thank you guys for fielding all these wonderful questions in the sidebar from our Blab community.
Thanks for the invite. Great job, Mike. Great to talk with you guys too.
Great. Thanks, guys. I want to remind you. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. And everyone
You guys
that's
are
watching here
awesome.
at Blab, check out the links in the sidebar. Check out Gerri Detweiler, check out Ebong, and check out the links where Brian just talked about. And we thank you all for joining us in this hour. And again, just thank you guys so much for all your time. Thank you, Ebong. Thank you, Gerri. Thank you, Brian. Bye, guys.
See ya.